gather around, children. I'm going to tell you the story of Vaxxed too. What's going on? All right. So I'm gonna go back to Vaxxed just so I can explain to you what happened for those of you guys that don't know. This is around 2016, and Vaxxed was this movie that was entered into the Tribeca Film Festival. Now, Tribeca is a very prestigious film festival that is owned by Robert De Niro, and it takes place once a year in New York. And without a moment's notice, without warning, it was they pulled it from the schedule. Now, usually movies and these festivals, especially something as prestigious as Tribeca, they have entries from all over the world. So out of all these people that entered for this film festival, it got chosen, and then all of a sudden, without any warning, they were like, oh no, we can't have it. It comes to find out one of their donors is Sloan Foundation, which has ties to the pharmaceutical industry, so there you go. But it got publicity, and because people don't like being told what they can and cannot see, that it became like this underground. I wouldn't say that the Vax people are a cult themselves, but in movie terms, they call it like a cult following, where something is like not mainstream, and it has a lot of viewers, but it's kind of like secretive, right? Because they pulled it out of the mainstream, and now it's secretive. And by the way, a lot of people too, they hope to get their films into these film festivals so they can get distribution. So if it's a success at the film festival and it gets a lot of buzz, then other companies would want to distribute the film so they can make money off of it, if that makes sense business wise. I know there's some people that have no idea how it works, so I'm trying to break it all down for you. All right, so Cinema Libre, I think that was the name of the company, picked up Vaxxed because they were like, hey, you got this movie, and people are, they're not allowed to see, and people want to see it. So it just generated more curiosity. It was actually a huge blessing in disguise. So this happens, and then as this is happening, during the shows, they would have Q&As, right? They would talk to the producers and why they made the movie. But this is actually standard for a lot of movies. I've been to a lot of independent movie screenings after. It's really cool. It's very informative. You get a chance to ask the actors questions or directors questions, whoever's in the movie, whatever, And so they usually have Q&As. And then at the Q&As, parents start coming up to the producers, and they started telling their stories of vaccine injury. Now I'm gonna hold that thought because I'm gonna go back and tell you a little bit what the movie is about. So the movie is about a whistleblower named William Thompson who came out and said that they destroyed data showing that vaccines did in fact cause a significant increase in autism. And this particular study that they did was black men, black boys, okay? And they basically changed their data plan and threw out information and kicked people off so they can manipulate data to show that vaccines didn't cause autism. Now this study that also was done, it was in response to the Wakefield study that Andrew Wakefield did. And if you don't know his side of the story, if you don't know anything past the mainstream narrative, I would suggest that you look into it, because they totally, the mainstream, just like, I have a lot of people that are conservatives that watch his channel, just like they're relying on conservatives and Trump supporters and stuff now. They did the same thing to him. So I know there are conservatives that are like, oh, well, he was fraudulent. But no, you're just repeating sound bites. You actually need to go and you need to research this man, this wonderful man who's a father of 5, whose family he comes from a family of doctors. His family, his family are doctors, who's written hundreds of published peer-reviewed papers before this CERT incident happened. And this is why they needed to destroy him, because he was hugely respected. And even if you read the study, it's very short. It's not even a hard read. It says that when he was doing the study, the parents reported that they had these symptoms after the MMR vaccine. And he's a pediatric gastroenterologist. So he had a lot of children that happened to have autism, that had Crohn's disease. And if you don't know what Crohn's disease is, you need to Google the image that shit and just be like, get a puke bucket, because that stuff, it looks painful. It just, your whole like intestines, they're all inflamed, your IBS, all that. It's like, oh, it's so horrible. You know, imagine you're a kid that you have that and you're autistic and you're nonverbal. You can't communicate your pain. That must be excruciating. Anyway, I'm going to tangent. So, you know, and he was just like, so this is what he didn't even say. This is the funny thing. People are always linking him saying, oh, he's anti-vax. He wasn't even anti-vaccine at the time. He just put in his study that the parents reported that these were the symptoms. And then he said, that's very interesting. We need to do further study on this. And because he's so well respected, and you know, and they had already had problems with the MMR vaccine before, mind you, because they had a mumps portion, like shortly before that, they had a mumps portion of this vaccine that was giving people encephalitis immediately. So sometimes a lot of the vaccine injuries is delayed, maybe a few hours a day, but people were getting messed up like immediately, so they pulled it. And then anyway, so they could not have that happen, right? And this guy who's respected and loved, and if you listen to Dr. Wakefield's colleagues, you listen to all the parents, and they all stood by him, and they all talk about this man glowingly and lovingly with support. So he, you know, the study, they go after them, they take his license away, and at the time, he was probably just really naive and just like, you know, I'm just doing my job. It's sad, right? The real doctors that do their job, they're the ones that get like burned at the stake. But anyway, he's like, yeah, oh, this sucks, you know, I was doing my job, yada, yada, yada. And then a few years later, this William Thompson guy calls another scientist named Brian Hooker. Brian Hooker was a scientist as well whose son became autistic after vaccines, and he started researching himself, and he was kind of poking around. And he talked to William Thompson, and William Thompson's like, no, we don't know anything, blah, 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 blah. And then one day, just William Thompson calls him out of the blue and was like, hey, man, you know, I feel really bad. You know, I lied. We manipulated the data. We burned it. We manipulated to show that vaccines didn't cause autism. This was in response to Dr. Wakefield's study. And, you know, I just thought that you should know that. And Brian Hooker did something very interesting because he was in California. California doesn't have a one-party law, but Oregon does. And that means when you record somebody on without their knowledge, that they can't sue you. They can sue you in California because both parties have to know that they're being recorded, but in Oregon, only one person does. So he drove up to Oregon. He was like, yeah, man, let me call you back. Okay. Drives up to Oregon and is like, okay, hey, I'm back. I'm sorry, you know. And he like records his ass and he gets him to confess like everything, right? And then he was like, he sent him all the information, which is available of the data plan and how they did it, how they changed it. He kept copies, but they had paper copies, this other scientist, and they all burned them, okay, in a trash can, right? And it's just like, you know, I guess they thought they got rid of all the info, but they didn't. So now, with that, they take this information, they take the information about the whistleblower. So Dr. William Thompson is still working at the CDC. He, you know, if something were to happen to him, then it would be obvious, it would be foul play. So I know they can't like murder him. So they just, you know, he has to stay silent. He filed, I think, a whistleblower act, but he hasn't been called to Congress to testify. Bill Posey is the only congressman that has, you know, questioned the CDC, has been trying to get him to testify, and they haven't. If it was anybody else, right? You know what's going on with Trump, right? If it was some waitress that somebody heard that she heard something said about Trump, then she would have been called to testify. But this scientist that was that conducted the study is not going to be called to testify. So now people are just like, all right, well, we just need to make a movie about this. We need to let people know what's going on. And people, you know, of course, the media tried to smear it. They didn't talk about it first, then they tried to smear it, saying it's an anti-vax movie and it's crazy and these people are crazy. Okay, well, where are the defamation lawsuits, right? Y'all could have shut this down like that. You could have shut it down like that, because these are very, very egregious, harsh claims that they're making. The fact that people are, you know, that the government agency lied and is responsible for like hundreds of kids, maybe more, thousands of kids, maybe more, for getting autism, you know? So, oh, okay, I know why they don't want discovery. I get it, right? Because once they start doing that, then they're gonna have to call witnesses and testimonies, and they're just gonna get found out. So now, the cat's out the bag. They talk about the MMR, they talk about autism, it's a really good movie. It really makes you question things. And so going back, the people are going up to the producers, telling them their story. Polly Tommy, who's one of the producers, starts recording these stories and logging them and categorizing them. And because there were so many, and because of how they were being shunned from theaters, they just decided to take this movie. I mean, they would have certain theaters that were showing the movie around the country. They would take their bus, and let me go back. Somebody donated a bus for them, giving them suggestion to do this. Donated a bus to them. They took the bus, refurbished it, and start driving around the country collecting all of these stories, or should I say data. But now I think they have over 7,000 last time I checked. It's still growing. It's still growing, over 7,000, right? And what they were surprised to find, it wasn't just the MMR vaccines, it's all vaccines, right? So now you're thinking it's just the MMR that caused autism. When I began this journey, that's what I thought. I was like, oh, it's just the MMR vaccine? But it's not the MMR vaccine, it's all of them. It's every single flipping one of them in different ways. Asthma, lupus, endometriosis, fibromyalgia, allergies, ear infections, brain damage on certain autism, certain degrees, paralysis, right? So now they have all this information logged, and it was so overwhelming that they're just like, you know, we need to make another movie about these stories. We didn't even counter. So this is just kind of like, I would say it's a grassroots movement. Even though it's been accused of not being that, I believe that they're sincere. I believe that they're truly sincere, and I think that they're just doing their part to do what they can to help. And it has been very healing for a lot of people, because a lot of people, they felt that they were alone. They thought they were crazy because 24 hours a day, the news people that make them feel crazy, right? You see how great vaccines are on children's programs, on Sesame Street, on Teletubbies, on the Magic School Bus, on House. They make, these nighttime medical shows. They make anti-vaxxers look crazy, right? There's late night talk shows. It's like now that I think of it, it's like every hour of the day there's some kind of show that you watch that's reinforced to make people to indoctrinate people with the brilliance of vaccines, the brilliance, right, of how great they are. And if you don't take this Jesus juice, then you're stupid, you're an idiot, you're gonna cause diseases to come back in some form or another, right? You get Sesame Street in the morning, you get daytime, soap operas and stuff that, or not soap operas, but like talk shows like The View that reinforce this. Then when you come home again in the afternoon, there are other little children shows that are on it. You have these fake news nerds that are on YouTube and social media that the skeptics for kids, that tell you how great vaccines are. Then you have like in the nighttime show, like around 8 o'clock, right, or nighttime, you have like ER or House or Grey's Anatomy to reinforce that concept. And then you have the late night talk shows, right, the comedians making fun of how dumb anti-vaxxers are. Oh wow, it's like 24/7, right? So if you're a parent and you've had somebody that you love, or you yourself has been injured by a vaccine, and you see this, it's really hard to come out, right? It's kind of like coming out of the closet. I would say, I've never come out the closet, but I'm just saying, like, for people that have described coming out the closet and the abuse and stuff that they get. And when my best friend, the co-founder of this channel, I saw her son regress into autism, and we, go on these forums and stuff, and all these parents want to do, they want two things. They want their child back, and they want to tell this to other people so it doesn't happen to them. They don't want, it causes huge financial strain on the family. The discrimination that you face having a vaccine-injured child is worse than, I would say, racism. Because even black people are just, it doesn't matter. It's not like a black-white thing, but people are really discriminatory. People don't really talk about that. People are very discriminatory against, special needs, or can be discriminatory against special needs kids. You have the divorce rate. Most of these are there's some awesome dads, but most of these people are mothers that are here because a lot of the time the father just bounces. That's a whole nother issue in men and how they can't deal with their emotions and stuff. That's a whole nother video. Then you have the guilt that just drives people crazy. You have the drugs that the parents get on themselves because they become depressed, and now that feeds into the whole depression epidemic. Then you also have what else do you have? You have sibling rivalry and sibling resentment, right? Because one child is sick, they get more attention than the other, and they feel like the parent doesn't care about them as much, right? Or they feel burdened, and then you have the parent that's worried about leaving the burden on other people in their family that they can't they don't want to leave that burden with other people. So and then you have a whole generation whose line is cut off, because their kids aren't going to procreate, so their bloodline's done. Grandparents. What about grandparents that are devastated that their children can't have kids, and they've just watched the end of their history, their bloodline just gone. Okay, so go see Vaxxed too. Take somebody to see it if you haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it yet. I will. If worse comes to worse, if I can't get a showing, I'll just buy it. But the takers are sold out. I've been trying really hard. They've been sold out, which is good, because I know this, but I think maybe it's better at this moment that somebody else that doesn't really know what's going on deserves my seat, and that's fine. I'd rather somebody else to get that spot. So a lot of the vaccine injury stories are already online. If you go to the Vaxxed channel, watch them. Get a box of Kleenex. A lot of them are heart-wrenching, but a lot of them are also informative. They also have a lot of doctors that have come out and talk about their experience. A lot of scientists too. They have that categorized as well. So a lot of doctors get burned. They believe in this. They believe in the religion of vaccination, the Church of Vaccines too, and they've been indoctrinated to believe they're great. So yeah, of course, I'm gonna shoot my kid up. So I know it's Vaxxed too has also been criticized. When a lot of people get out of the movie, they just feel powerless, or they feel hopeless, or they feel sad. And it's been criticized for saying that, it's disempowering people and it couldn't be controlled opposition. I don't think so. I think that they have done a lot of good, and I think that it probably does. I know watching the videos, it does for a minute. You don't have to stay in depression. It's like the emotional guidance scale. You just keep moving up. Let it channel you into anger, and then if you're angry, what are you going to do about it? Are you just going to, I bet you that this movie has got a lot of people not to vaccinate their kids. Even if they're sad after this, they're going to think twice about vaccinating their kids, right? They're going to probably go home and do some research. They're going to look into some of the stuff that they saw, right? They're going to start questioning things. So even if they leave in the moment, feeling sad or powerless, I believe that it's temporary, because out of Vax, like Del Big Tree spawned his show. Andrew Wakefield is doing another movie. They made a sequel. They've corralled a grassroots movement. So a lot of good has come out of this movie. And if you're curious about it, there are no laser beams that are kind of come out of the screen and like brainwash you into being an anti-vaxxer. You always have the freedom to make your own decisions and go and research, but it would behoove you to go and research after if you saw something that you thought perk your curiosity, if you were moved by this, right? And don't act like the pro-vax side does not like throw up pictures all day of kids in iron lungs and some pictures of smallpox. All they use is anecdotes, okay? All day, every day, 24/7, 25/8, every day anecdotes. Even ORAC of Science-Based Medicine was caught telling people to lie and make up stories about their children that didn't get vaccines, right? And then how they died and stuff. No, but they had to lie. These people are telling the truth. So, we don't have to be asleep for anymore. We don't have to abide by these rules, this dogma anymore. Okay. Let me know if you have seen the movie. I would like to know what you think. And yeah, guys, peace and love. Talk to you later. Bye bye.